Well, good morning, everybody. To get us started today, I want to show you a satellite animation here over parts of Alberta and British Columbia. As you're watching this deeper low that came over and delivered rain and cloud cover and some bigger storms that are just hitting this area that have been having so many wildfires, I just want to apologize for the audio quality for the last couple of days. My main computer, the one I do all my work on, I fried it over the weekend, and I'm waiting to get a replacement. So until then, I'm using a backup machine, and the audio ability for it to record is not as good, and I apologize for that. But this storm system was critical for this area and putting out these wildfires. Now, it didn't do it completely, but it helped. This is the same system that came through and knocked those temperatures back here in the Pacific Northwest as well. So as you watch this animation of where that smoke is going to go, notice the source of that smoke here. Now we no longer see just huge plumes of smoke coming back into the atmosphere. But what's left from it still is going to spread throughout much of North America, and it'll be around for a couple more days this week. Kind of on our national satellite, as we watch the sunrise this morning, we can see, some places where there's still some convection popping here, but all of this haze in through this area, this is all wildfire smoke from the last couple of weeks. Now, I want to take you back overnight and just show you how things showed up yesterday on satellite. Large storms over parts of the southeast, but do you notice the direction they were moving? So as I play this is going forward in time. Watch it again. Their outflow was actually moving toward the south and west. So these storms had a very interesting trajectory if you were watching the radar down here. But this is one of the areas where we expect to stay wet. The southern plains is an area we expect to stay wet. And you can see some of the very large storms last night here in Texas. North of it, this is all smoke. And get back into the mountains, storms just popping throughout the mountains. But that's our setup right now. And if we just take a look at what that smoke may start to influence, I want to show you this map. I show it every once in a while. What it's looking at here is cumulative downward solar flux. That's how much of the sun's light actually gets down to the surface. And overall, when you go back over the last month, so April 22nd to May 22nd, this has been the corridor where we've had a lot of sunshine. Okay, more sunshine than cloud cover. A lot of cloud cover down south to the Four Corners states, and certainly here wrapping around what was back in April a deep low that was over parts of Ontario and Quebec. That's the one that was still bringing big snows into parts of Ontario. But I'll be watching this to see if this changes overall once we get into more days ahead, I should say, to see if we can capture more of where that smoke came through here in the month of May to kind of knock some of these solar anomalies back. So it'll be interesting to watch. But the other thing this really reveals is kind of some of the drier stretches as well. And if we just look here at the last 30 days of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal, it's not lost on me the sheer size of this area that has been dry. Now, that's not to just say that's the only spot that's been dry. It's just an area that normally in spring we get a lot of rain that comes back through and fills the profile. And I can just see from Michigan to Nebraska, from Minnesota all the way down to Louisiana, there's kind of just this crosshair in the midsection of the country where there's been large swaths of areas that have not seen as much precipitation as needed. Now, some places there's been enough to sustain what's been planted for a little while longer, and we know that we're going into a drier time period. But I just want to show you something about Nebraska. From west to east across Nebraska, what a different story. So I'm going to take you first of all over here. Okay, so we're going to go to our weather site here, and we're going to go to Scotts Bluff. This is the one that we work on. And just want to show you again, so this is in western Nebraska. They were very dry, for a stretch here in April, and then these are those May precipitation events that came through and now got them, 181% of normal rainfall. So they're way up here, but the way they got there was just with tremendous rain as of late. And then you go over to the eastern side of the state to Lincoln and nothing. So we just flatlined. And right now, compared to the last 5 years, this is, the driest we've been at this point. And so there's just concern as to when we're going to start to fill in these gaps and others across the country. Because where they keep filling in is the places it's been wet. The last 24 hours, storms erupted here, down here, and then of course with that low that's curling into the Canadian prairie. So bigger storms that came out of parts of Montana as well. And we're just going to watch this pattern kind of go on repeat. So if you look at today's risk of storms, where are they? In the southeast, here in Texas, and then kind of building up here into the western plains. Tomorrow, it's kind of the same thing. We're just going to keep an eye right in through Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and then you're going to go here on the next day, and it's way back in the western and high plains. And the main reason for this is we just don't have the flow set up properly to give any reason to shove this out into the rest of the United States. So starting off at 7 a.m. today on Tuesday, It's going to play through the high-res NAM. You can see the storms popping here. There's a cold front that's going to be important for the temperatures around the Great Lakes in New England on Thursday morning. But then watch tonight, right in through here. This is where the models are trying to kick off what could be a series of very strong storms, potentially with very heavy rainfall, hail, maybe more linear, although the NAM has a bias toward really producing a lot more linear systems versus, cellular convection. But as we play it forward, this is getting out to Wednesday morning, playing through the day on Wednesday, and getting out here till Thursday. So if I could just kind of draw it for you, if you're kind of west of that line, and maybe east of this one, that's where the action is. It's all throughout here. Now, there's a couple of stray storms that are going to try to get through this area, but that's overall what the setup is. All right, to put it together in bigger terms for the next 10 days, I'm just going to run out for you the latest European model forecast of total accumulated precipitation. And here we are just playing through. I'm going to go all the way at 10 days with the model. I'm looking for holes in this. And the biggest one is going to be right in through this area. Okay, we expect it drier here, although there's been some big rains that have come through Arizona in the month of May, but they were earlier in the month. But the wettest regions, of course, down here, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, this would be absolutely mission critical to the state of Missouri. That'll be the top thing I'll be watching later on this week to see if this develops. And this moisture needs to curl around to get into more of North and South Carolina to deliver rainfall to this region, because that's an area that has been drier as well. But much of the Midwest is going to see a dry stretch for a while, whereas we're adding more to Montana, more to the Canadian Prairie, more to the Western Plains. And if we look at the same map and say, what does it look like compared to average, this is what you got. So we have places in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, this stretch getting over here to West Virginia, where we're not expecting much of any precipitation, and that's about a 1 to 2 inch deficit in the next 10 days. So critical rains being missed in this area. But if those rains return later in June, as we talked about in the in-depth report last night, then this is less of an effect than it would be should we see the same kind of forecast in middle July or middle of August. All right, so that's important to remember the time of year we're in for the Corn Belt. But down here in the Southern Plains, gosh, this is just, honestly, we can start to talk about this busting a drought. I mean, this could push toward that criteria. Not close yet, but that's something I'll be thinking about. Okay, our biggest problem in the midsection of the country here is just the flow. As I play over the next 10 days, you just see a lot of white in here. This is the jet stream level winds, and there's just nothing, no good flow in this area. And I take you all the way out there to day 10. This is June 1st, and we just see, a lack of it. There's just nothing out there to really get this going. So from the start of this time period all the way to the end, we're just missing the flow in the middle part of the country. It's fully split. Normally, when I mention split flow, it's not splitting here. It's usually splitting over the West Coast. Not this year, not this May. Let me rephrase that. Not right now in May. The split is right in the middle part of the country. So from there, let's go in and have a look at what the models are putting out in terms of total precip. We've seen through Wednesday and Thursday. So the front clears. Again, there's that corridor. Whoops. Let's try that again. Right there to the west of that line that stays wetter. So how long does that last? This is Wednesday into Thursday, getting into Friday. Still see it? And this is Saturday. Now Saturday, I'm going to keep a close eye right here to see if this system can curl into North Carolina and Virginia. Watch it with me here. Because as that system goes through, this is the one that might start bringing some moisture into parts of Missouri, which desperately needs it. We just play this out there the next Monday and Tuesday. And again, that's better chances right here in this part of the Mid-South to get some of that rainfall. All right, what I will be watching, I just left it out there at the very end, is this. There are some indications that the flow could start to push the ridge that's in the midsection of the country back. This is not strong flow, though. But instead of parking the ridge here where it is now, maybe it gets translated back farther to the west and sits over the Rocky Mountains. Now that brings more heat back to the west, but it could deliver some northwest flow, and maybe in June this could start to initiate some storms. I don't think so. I think it's a bit too early, but certainly no southeastern ridge to pump moisture back into place. And so that's why we see going out there for the next 2 weeks a drier signal in and around the whole of the Great Lakes kind of basin in the Midwest. And that's been a very consistent theme in this forecast. So this is your day 8 through 14. They get you out there to June the 5th. All right. From here, let's talk about temperatures because we have some cold air sliding into the Great Lakes and then into New England on Thursday. So this will be a frost event here. If we take a look at what those high temperatures are going to do, this is today's highs. So all the heat out of Montana's moved into the Dakotas. Where you see the blues, this is cloud cover and rain. There's that front on Wednesday. And by Thursday, that's when it really brings in the colder air. So Thursday morning is the time I'm going to watch this corridor. Let me make sure I'm drawing this carefully. Right in through here for a frost. Now, Thursday getting into Friday and Saturday and Sunday, you just notice that we have short waves of heat that come through the northwest. Most of California near normal on temperatures, but cooler here, cooler at times down in Texas. The warmth is in the central part of the U.S., and that's where we're going to be able to pick up, 150 GDDs just over the next 7 days. So as we finish planting crops in through here, they're going to put some heat on these crops right away. So they should emerge within a week if you're still planting in South Dakota here. From there, I'm going to show you what the temperature pattern does going forward. And our narrative just continues as we slide out there day 5 through 10, which gets us out to the first couple of days of June. And then we play all the way up to day 10 through 15. This gets us out to June 2nd through the 7th. We just notice warm anomalies north, cold south. So the difference here is that there's a weak temperature gradient, and that's what's driving the weaker winds right now. Now, for the last 3 or 4 years almost, all we've talked about in spring are the strong winds. And I want to make a point about this because last year that was top of mind. Last year, this is what our temperature pattern looked like in May. We were very cold in the Pacific Northwest. The jet stream dipped south of that and ran straight into this area. All the heat was down here, and we had flooding over the Red River of the North and over North and South Dakota, Minnesota, from near persistent flow in the atmosphere. This is the one that in June set off the flooding in Yellowstone, and this is what kept the early accumulation from heat away from the Pacific Northwest. But do you see the difference? The heat south and the cold north, that just drove the jet stream right in between the two, and we had tremendous winds. This year, it's gone. That whole thing has been flipped, and therefore the winds are light. The systems don't move, everything stays stagnant, and until the atmosphere gains that momentum back, which is going to rely on a temperature gradient, we're going to be stuck like this. How long do I think it lasts? Well, we talked about it last night. I think we've got a couple of weeks of this at least until we start to get into a more summer thunderstorm regime in terms of the pattern. Last couple things here. I just want to show you, if we look at current sea surface temperatures, but instead compare them to normal. Again, we're watching that negative PDO erode, but over the last week, the Gulf, the Caribbean, Western Atlantic warmed up as well. And our Nino region, right out here in the middle of the Pacific, continues to warm. It's actually up about 1.2 C compared to where it was back in February. So that is your building El Nino event. Lastly, this is the newest update from the IRI multi-model probabilistic forecasting system, still showing very high probability of El Nino all the way through next winter. And lastly, I want to just show you again, I know I've said lastly 3 times now, but I want to show you again the moisture coming into Argentina, basically stretching from Cordoba to Buenos Aires later this week into the weekend. And then the front that drops the temperatures here also possibly brings rain into Mato Grosso, down toward Paraná, and these are areas that need rain to finish off this safrinha crop. So we'll watch that carefully. The big donut hole here is normal. All right. Okay, we'll keep watching it. Talk to you again in the morning. Thanks.